Today, conservatives and conservative media had an absolute fit, claiming this plea deal is evidence the DOJ went too easy on Hunter and that it's all evidence of a two-tier justice system. That could not be farther from the truth. Let's look for a second at the two investigations Republicans are using as evidence of this supposed two-tiered system. First, there's the investigation into Hunter Biden's taxes, which was launched by the Trump Justice Department back in 2018. The investigation was assigned to the Trump-appointed U.S. Attorney for Delaware, David Weiss. When Biden took office, he could have easily replaced Delaware's U.S. Attorney. Delaware is Biden's home state. Presidents replace U.S. attorneys all the time. It would have been totally normal for Biden to replace this Trump-appointed prosecutor with someone more in line with the goals of his own administration. But here's the thing. He didn't. Biden kept Trump's own pick for U.S. attorney in place so as to not even give the impression that he was interfering with this investigation. On top of that, Biden's Attorney General Merrick Garland has explicitly and publicly pledged not to interfere at all with the investigation. Garland has said that the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney leading that investigation is, quote, not to be denied anything he needs. Okay, so that is one example of our Justice Department at work. The Biden administration, DOJ, bending over backwards to not show any favor, even any appearance of favor, to the president's son. Then there are the investigations into President Trump. Just last week, we got this reporting from the New York Times detailing how special counsel Jack Smith is being as deferential as possible to former President Trump in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. Now, the Times reports that this is likely an effort to avoid having the case delayed by distracting fights. The end result, though, is that Trump is getting the kid glove treatment. Quote, the magistrate judge assigned to handle Donald J. Trump's arraignment did something of a double take during the proceeding on Tuesday when the Justice Department offered the former president a bond deal that was not merely lenient, but imposed virtually no restrictions on him at all. Jack Smith opted not to request conditions routinely imposed on other defendants seeking to be released from custody, like cash bail, limits on domestic travel, returning in his passport. Smith was so lenient and deferential to Trump that the magistrate judge actually pushed back against Smith and imposed some restrictions on Trump against Smith's wishes. That's just in the courtroom. The actual charges against Trump, they are also tellingly deferential. Smith seems to have purposefully left out a potential charge that was listed in the affidavit the Justice Department filed to obtain a search warrant for Mar-a-Lago last summer, a charge about the concealing and mishandling of sensitive government documents. That was the only charge that might have directly impacted Trump's ability to run for president. If someone is convicted of that charge, they are required to, quote, forfeit their office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. Trump is seemingly getting every accommodation possible, no mugshots or bail or anything else that normal defendants have to deal with. Well, at the same time, DOJ made sure to treat Hunter Biden by the book. The idea that Trump is being prosecuted unfairly here, well, that's absurd. But don't just take my word for it. Here's Trump's former Attorney General, Bill Barr, in an op-ed just yesterday. Quote, Trump's indictment is not the result of unfair government persecution. This is a situation entirely of his own making. The effort to present Trump as a victim in the Mar-a-Lago document affair is cynical political propaganda. Today, we got the major news that the judge overseeing the Trump Mar-a-Lago documents case has set August 14th as the date for that trial to begin. Now, there is a good chance that date could get pushed back, but the August date is significant nonetheless. Trump's case is being handled by the Trump-appointed judge, Aileen Cannon, who has been deferential to Trump in the past. You remember that. So there's been a worry that she might use her control of the schedule of this case to help Trump delay it. At least so far, that does not seem to be the case. And that means that we could be headed towards an absolutely incredible August for the former president. Not only is August potentially the start of Trump's trial in this case, but the first Republican presidential primary debate, yes, that too is set for August. Whether or not Trump is on that stage himself, his indictment or indictments are almost guaranteed to be a topic of discussion. And then there's Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis. Willis has signaled that at some point from late July through August, she will likely announce yet another set of charges against former President Trump. Whatever Trump's summer vacation plans are, They better be refundable. Joining us now, former U.S. Attorney and MSNBC contributor Joyce Vance and former litigator and MSNBC legal analyst Lisa Rubin. Thank you both so much for being here. Joyce, I want to go to you first. Republicans are calling Hunter Biden's plea agreement a, quote, sweetheart deal and one that reveals a two-tier justice system. From you, from a legal perspective, how do you see this?
Well, it's really not. If anything, Hunter Biden has been charged a little bit more heavily than you would expect in this case. If you look at the heartland of DOJ cases and how this sort of conduct is charged, the misdemeanor charges for failure to file taxes are precisely how this sort of situation is routinely handled. It is by statute a misdemeanor, not a felony. The gun charge is a little bit more perplexing. Roughly 16%, give or take, of the federal criminal docket consists of gun cases in an average year. And about 66% of those cases in the most recent data that the Sentencing Commission puts out is a similar charge to the charge that Biden now faces. It is a prohibited person in possession of a firearm. But almost always that charge involves felons. And for reasons that are pretty easy to understand, it typically does not involve someone who is a user or someone who is addicted to drugs, simply because there would be so many of those cases. Unless there's some sort of underlying connection of that gun to another crime, this is almost never charged. So it's a little bit surprising to see it here.